I was 79 the morning I realized my own grandson thought I was slipping, truly slipping, the way folks do when the lights start going out in the attic. You know the look young people get when they think they're humoring you. The soft voice, the fake smile, the little pats on the arm. That's how Tyler talked to me for weeks. Real gentle, like I wouldn't remember what he said 5 minutes later. But the worst part wasn't the condescension. It was knowing he believed it. And knowing he was using it. June 14, 2023, 2:47 p.m. if memory serves. Funny how forgetful old me remembered the time clear as day. I was sitting in my little kitchen in Gresham, Oregon, the one with the peeling linoleum and the coffee maker that hisses like a freight train. The sun was coming in through the back window, lighting up the dust like tiny golden sparks. I was heating up leftover meatloaf, the kind that tastes better the second day, when my phone buzzed. It was a text notification from Columbia Federal Bank. A $2,000 withdrawal has been made from your account. I hadn't left the house all day. My hands went cold, not shaky, the cold you feel when something wrong settles in your bones. I called the bank right away. "Mr. Carter," the woman said, "you were here just 20 minutes ago. You showed your ID." "No," I told her, "I damn well was." Silence. Long enough for me to picture her staring at her monitor, frowning. "Well, sir," she started, voice hesitant, "the teller recognized you." Recognized me. That's when the meatloaf turned to stone in my throat. Because I knew exactly who had my spare key. Exactly who had been helping me with errands. Exactly who had been playing the poor, confused grandpa. Routine so smoothly, I started to doubt my own sanity. Tyler, 25. Fresh from some online crypto scheme he swore was the future. And now, apparently, wearing my windbreaker and baseball cap to impersonate me at the bank. I felt something old and heavy pressed down on my chest, not sadness, not even anger, more like betrayal with teeth. "You still have the footage?" I finally asked the woman. "Yes, sir, we record everything." "Good," I said, "I'm gonna need it." That's when she stopped using the soft, patient tone. That's when she realized I wasn't confused at all. You'd think at 79, a man would get used to being underestimated. But this cut deep. Tyler had grown up in my house half the time, Saturday pancakes, little league games, the whole deal. I'd helped him with his FAFSA forms, bought him his first used Honda, even covered his dental work when he cracked a molar on a jawbreaker. And here he was, thinking Grandpa was too far gone to know the difference between truth and fog. But here's the thing. I wasn't slipping. I'd been acting. A little stutter here. A slow blink there. Asking the same question twice when I needed to buy myself time. People think old age makes you simple. Hell no. If anything, it teaches you patience, teaches you to wait, to watch. I had a feeling for weeks something wasn't right. Tyler hovering too close, offering to help organize my paperwork, telling me I shouldn't drive anymore, not for my safety, mind you, but because it stresses me out. Always pushing. Always watching. Now I had proof. Or I would, once I got my hands on that footage. But I didn't tell Tyler I knew. Not yet. At 4:12 p.m., right when the shadows started stretching across my driveway, I heard his old Honda rattle up. He walked in like he owned the place, didn't even knock. "Hey, Gramps," he said, dropping his backpack on the couch. "You okay? You look pale." I stared at the boy, no, the man, who thought I'd lost my mind. "Just a little tired," I said, letting my voice get soft. "Long day." He smiled, the kind of smile that looks harmless until you see the calculation behind it. "You need me to help with your checkbook later?" "Maybe," I said, "we'll see." "You sure you're feeling all right?" His voice dipped, syrupy sweet. "You've been forgetting things lately." I let my eyes drift to the side. "Just for effect." "Well," I murmured, "sometimes." He nodded, satisfied. Too satisfied. That's when I knew I was right to wait. Right to play along. Right to let him think I was slipping. Because what I needed wasn't a confrontation. I needed evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. And the bank had it. What Tyler didn't know, what he couldn't possibly guess, was that by tomorrow afternoon, I'd be sitting in a tiny office at Columbia Federal watching footage that would change everything. Footage proving who walked up to that teller window. Footage proving I wasn't even in the building. Footage proving Tyler thought my dementia was real. He was dead wrong. And I was just getting started. I'll tell you something because you're really listening. Life wasn't always twisted up like this. Before all this talk of dementia, stolen withdrawals, and bank footage, my days were quieter, simpler. Back then, my biggest worry was whether my tomatoes would survive the June rain in Gresham. Funny how life can pivot on you so fast your neck cracks. I'm 79, but my mind has always been steady, steadier than my knees, that's for damn sure. I'd earned that steadiness. 42 years at the Freightliner plant in Portland, working swing shift half the time, gave me a kind of internal clock nothing can shake. I used to come home with grease under my nails, the smell of machine oil buried in my clothes. My wife, Martha, God rest her, said she could smell me from the driveway. She joked that she married me for the paychecks, but stayed for the cologne of diesel and hardworking sweat. Martha passed in 2016, pancreatic cancer, quick, cruel. By Christmas that year, the house felt like a museum I didn't have the heart to walk through. Tyler was around back then, more than his parents were, if I'm being honest. He'd stop by after work, sometimes even after dark, just to check on me. I remember him standing in my doorway with those old basketball shorts and that shy grin of his. "You eating okay, Gramps?" he'd ask. "I'm old, not helpless," I'd grumble. But I'd heat up leftovers anyway, and he'd sit and talk about girls or jobs or whatever trouble he'd gotten himself into. I liked those nights. They made the ache of the empty house shrink a little. Looking back, maybe that was the first mistake, making myself so available, showing him where I kept the spare key, letting him help shovel the driveway or bring groceries inside, letting him into my routines, letting him feel at home in my home. Tyler had always been a dreamer. Not the bad kind, not at first. He wanted to start a business, be his own boss, build something new. I respected that. Hell, I encouraged it. I'd pull out a few hundred here and there to help him get things going. When you're old, handing out money sometimes feels like handing out purpose. You give a piece of yourself to stay relevant. "You believe in me more than Dad does," he said once. We were out back, the smell of cut grass thick in the air. "Well, your dad's practical," I told him. "Somebody has to keep the family grounded." He laughed, but there was something else behind that laugh, something I didn't understand back then, something sharp. The boy had a good heart once. I know that. I saw it. He was the one who drove me to the VA hospital when my hips were acting up. He fixed my gutters without charging a dime. He brought me a slice of pumpkin pie every Thanksgiving, even after Martha died and the family started eating in separate houses. So when he started hinting that maybe I was slipping, I brushed it off. Forgetfulness comes with age, Gramps, no shame in it. I didn't like it, but I didn't push back. You reach a certain age, people expect you to slow down. And if you don't fit their idea of what old is supposed to look like, they mold you into it anyway. That's when I started letting the slips happen. Not real ones, performed ones. Small, controlled. A repeated question, a pause before answering something simple, letting him think I misplaced the remote. I wasn't trying to trap him then. I swear I was. I only wanted to see what he'd do. But he noticed, oh, he noticed. And slowly, the way a cold draft creeps through a cracked window, his tone changed, softened, sweetened, thickened like honey that hides the poison underneath. "Here, Gramps, let me handle the mail. Bills are confusing these days. You want me to sort them. You should leave the tough stuff to me. You've earned a break." I knew that tone. I'd heard it around the nursing home when I visited old friends, caregivers talking down to men who had built entire lives, men who had fought in wars, men who had buried wives and raised children, men who deserved better. But this wasn't a stranger. This was my grandson. One evening, late April, chilly, damp, the kind of Oregon night that seeps into your joints, he sat across from me at the kitchen table. I remember the hum of the fridge behind us, and the warm smell of chili still lingering in the air. "Gramps," he said, tapping his fingers nervously, "you ever think about getting help with your accounts?" "What kind of help?" I asked. He shrugged, like power of attorney, someone to manage stuff if you know things get fuzzy. I stared at him a long time, longer than he expected, long enough to watch the confidence in his eyes flicker. "That's something your dad put you up to?" I finally asked. "No," he said quickly, too quickly. "I'm just looking out for you." I nodded and let my gaze drop to the table. "Maybe," I whispered, "maybe you're right." He smiled. And I swear to you, for a second, I almost believed it was kindness, honest-to-God concern, the kind Martha would have nudged me to accept. But later that night, up in my room with the window cracked open, I felt the shift. Something was off, something under the surface. And the next weeks proved it. The hovering, the checking, the pressure, the subtle digs at my memory. He wasn't helping. He was preparing. By the time that June withdrawal hit, he had built a whole story in his head. A version of me that was frail, foggy, easy to manipulate. A version he could dress in my old windbreaker and parade into a bank with. That was the before. The version of him I thought I knew. The version of me he thought was fading. But I wasn't fading, not even close. And what neither of us knew, not yet, was that the bank footage would turn everything upside down. For him, for me, for the whole damn family. Because the before picture isn't just about what life looked like. It's about how far people will fall once the mask cracks. And his mask was already crumbling. You ever get that feeling in your gut, the quiet whisper that something ain't right? Not panic, not fear, just that low, steady hum beneath your ribs telling you to pay attention. That feeling started tapping on my spine sometime in early May, long before the bank text ever buzzed through my phone. Back then, the days were getting warmer. The rhododendrons in my front yard were blooming that big sloppy pink Martha used to love, and Tyler had started showing up at my house with a frequency that didn't match his usual patterns. My grandson was many things, but consistent wasn't one of them. He used to come around once a week, maybe twice if he wanted to borrow something. But suddenly he was stopping by every other day. And each time he came with a purpose. "Gramps, you want me to handle your mail? You sure you pay this bill? Let me take that trash can out, you could slip." Slip, he said that word a lot. You don't realize how insulting a simple word can be, until someone repeats it enough times to make you think they're praying for it to happen. The first real crack, the moment my doubt turned into suspicion, happened on a Wednesday, May 10th, about 3:20 in the afternoon. Cloudy sky, the kind that sits on the shoulders of Mount Hood like a gray wool blanket. I'd gone out to the driveway to bring in the recycling bin when I noticed the lid on my mailbox wasn't sitting flush. It was just slightly ajar. Now I know my own habits better than anyone. I always shut it tight, always. Old army training, do a job right or you redo it. So I walked over, opened it up, and saw something odd. The entire stack of mail was neatly organized, perfectly squared, like someone had pulled it out, sorted it, and stuffed it back in. I didn't touch a thing, not at first. I just stood there, hand hovering, feeling the damp spring air brushing against my skin. Then Tyler's car door slammed from up the street. I turned. He waved. "Too chipper." "Hey, Gramps, just thought I'd swing by." I didn't say anything right away, just watched him walk toward me, backpack slung over one shoulder. And I swear to you, he had a guilty look, quick, fleeting, but there. That half-second tightening around the eyes people do before they put on their smile. "You checking your mail?" he asked. "Was about to." He nodded, hands jammed deep in his shorts pockets. "You need me to go through it, in case it's confusing?" I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out the stack and flipped through it slowly. 3 envelopes from Social Security, one from my Medicare supplemental plan, a retirement statement from Fidelity, a property tax notice. All the things a man with slipping memory might get confused about. "What are you doing with my mail, Tyler?" I asked, my voice soft. He blinked. "What, nothing. I mean I checked it on Monday because it was sticking out, just helping. Helping. Always helping. But now the crack had opened. Later that night after he left, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and spread that mail out in front of me. I checked every date, every return address, every account number. Stuff I hadn't touched in a week was already opened. Stuff I always opened on the first day of the month had been slit clean, then resealed with a neat line of glue. Tyler had been reading my mail. I didn't confront him, not then. You confront too early, you lose the chance to prove it. Instead, I started paying attention. The second crack came the following week, when I went to make myself a cup of tea and found my kitchen drawer rearranged. Not messy, organized, sharp as a showroom. Measuring spoons nested perfectly, can opener in the front left corner, scissors tucked in neatly. Tyler's work. I could smell his cologne faintly on the drawer handle, a cheap, sharp scent he wore when he wanted to feel important. Thought I'd help you keep things tidy, he said later when I casually mentioned it. Didn't want you struggling to find stuff. Struggling. Another word like slip. I played dumb. Appreciate it, I told him, letting my voice wobble just a bit. He smiled, relieved, and in that smile something rotten showed. He wasn't helping me. He was preparing a narrative. The third crack, the one that sealed my suspicions, came when I walked into my own living room and found him not helping, not straightening, not cleaning, but photographing. He was bent over my file cabinet, phone in hand, the flashlight on. I froze in the doorway. His back tensed when he realized someone was behind him. Then he straightened up so fast he nearly dropped the phone. Gramps, I was just looking for your electric bill. Didn't want it to get overdue. There weren't any bills in that cabinet. It held tax returns, insurance papers, home deed copies, my VA documentation. Stuff he had no business touching. But he talked fast, too fast, and slipped the phone into his pocket. You shouldn't bend like that, he said. Don't want you hurting your back. And for some reason, that's what broke me. Not the lies. Not the sneaking. Not the invasion. It was the patronizing tone. The certainty that he could talk down to me without consequence. The casual belief that I was already fading, already less than who I'd always been. I sat down slowly in my recliner, one hand rubbing the ache in my hip, real ache, not the fake kind I'd been using on him. Tyler, I said, you think I'm getting old. He softened instantly, almost pitying. Gramps, it happens to everyone. I nodded, keeping my face blank. That's what he believed. That's what he needed to believe. Because only a man who thinks you're losing your mind feels bold enough to steal from you. What I didn't realize then, but would soon learn, was that the cracks weren't in me. They were in him. His plan was messy. His lies weren't coordinated. His timing was sloppy. And the bank visit, the impersonation, the footage. That wasn't his first mistake. It was simply the one that would destroy him. I don't care how old you are. 79, 89, doesn't matter. There's a moment in every man's life when the truth hits so hard it steals the air clean out of your lungs. Mine came on June 15th, 2023, at 1:32 in the afternoon, inside a cramped security office behind Columbia Federal Bank. That room smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet, and the walls were so thin I could hear a teller laughing on the other side. But all I could focus on was the monitor in front of me. There he was, my grandson, wearing my windbreaker, wearing my mariner's cap, holding my ID. The footage showed him stepping up to the counter like he'd been doing it his whole life. Confident, smooth, not a flicker of hesitation. He even leaned in the way I do, one hand braced on the counter because of my hip, a mannerism he knew damn well. You ever see your own blood impersonate you so convincingly, you feel like you're watching your own ghost? That's what it felt like. I didn't say anything at first. The fraud investigator, Jeffrey Price, skinny guy, glasses too big for his face, paused the footage and looked at me carefully, like he was afraid I'd crumble. "Mr. Carter," he said, "this wasn't you, correct?" I kept staring at the screen. The video was paused on Tyler's profile, his jaw clenched, eyes down, pretending to struggle with the withdrawal slip. "No," I said quietly, "that's not me." Jeffrey nodded once, relief washing over him. "Then we have identity fraud, likely familial based on your address proximity." Familial. That word is heavier than it looks. He hit play again. I watched Tyler step back from the counter, cash envelope in hand, nodding politely to the teller like a good boy. Then he turned toward the exit. Right before he walked out, he looked straight at the camera. Dead on. No disguise. Just a blank expression. I felt something tear inside me, not physically but deeper. Something that had held me steady for years. The belief that family was safe, even when life was. The belief that blood meant something. I exhaled slow. When was this recorded? Yesterday, 2:27 p.m. The exact time the bank text hit my phone. I closed my eyes for a moment. Behind my eyelids, I saw every version of Tyler I'd ever known. The little boy with ketchup on his cheeks, the teenager borrowing $20 for gas, the young man calling me after Martha died because he didn't know how to handle watching me grieve. And now this stranger wearing my coat, draining my accounts. Jeffrey cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter, do you want to file a report?" I didn't answer right away. Filing a report meant something irreversible. Once you sign your name on that line, you aren't just a grandfather anymore, you're a victim. And he isn't just a grandson anymore, he's a criminal. But then Jeffrey said something that made the decision for me. This wasn't his first time. I turned to him. "What?" He shifted uncomfortably and clicked through a log. "Your account shows 3 prior withdrawals in the last 6 weeks, all in branch, all verified by ID." My stomach dropped. "How much?" He hesitated. $7,800 before yesterday. So not just 2,000. Almost 10 grand total. My mouth went dry. My heartbeat slowed in that heavy, controlled way it did back in the army when things were about to go south. "Show me the footage," I said. He did. And the truth unraveled piece by piece. Tyler had been coming in regularly, always dressed like me. Same jacket, same cap, even walked with a slight limp, my limp. I watched him charm the tellers, joke about the weather, talk about my old truck as if it were his. It was a performance. He'd rehearsed. And the worst part, the part that clawed at my insides, was how natural he looked doing it. Like theft had become a skill he'd practiced. By the time the last clip finished, my hands were gripping the armrest so tight my knuckles had turned white. Jeffrey spoke gently. "You're remarkably composed, Mr. Carter." "I'm not composed," I said. "I'm thinking." He leaned back a little. "You don't have to decide right now, but this is serious. If you file a report, we can freeze the account, start an investigation, even get law enforcement involved." I shook my head slowly. "No, not yet." He looked confused. "Sir." I said, "Not yet." Then I stood, my knees stiff but steady. "I want copies of that footage." He blinked. "All of it?" "Yes, everything you have." He hesitated, then nodded and inserted a USB drive. "This could lead to criminal charges." "I know. Are you sure you want to handle this on your own for now?" I met his eyes. "Jeffrey, my grandson thinks I'm losing my mind. He thinks I'm weak. Let him keep thinking that." Jeffrey swallowed, then handed me the drive. "Be careful." I slipped it into my jacket pocket and felt the weight of it like a stone. When I walked out of that bank, the sky had turned dark, thick Oregon clouds rolling in like a warning. The air smelled like rain and wet asphalt. I climbed into my old F-150, shut the door, and just sat there. The betrayal didn't hit me all at once. It came slow, like a bruise spreading. It was the kind of hurt that makes you whisper things to yourself just to stay grounded. He didn't. He couldn't. He did. I turned the key in the ignition, the engine rumbling awake. The radio crackled with static. I didn't pull out right away. I kept picturing Tyler's face on that screen, calm, practiced, sure of himself. He thought he'd gotten away with it. He thought I wouldn't know. He thought my mind was slipping. And sitting there in that truck, with the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket, something in me hardened. This wasn't just theft. This was betrayal sharpened into a blade. And I was done pretending. The shattering moment wasn't seeing Tyler steal from me. It was realizing I had to start planning, not to protect myself, but to make damn sure he never hurt me again. You'd think that after seeing my own grandson impersonate me on camera, stealing my money right in front of God and the teller window, I'd go straight into action. Call the police, call his father, march over to Tyler's place and demand answers. But that's not what happened. What happened was quieter, darker, slower. It crept into my life the way Oregon rain does, soft at first, almost gentle, then relentless until everything feels soaked through. The night after I watched that footage, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the old house breathe. Sometimes the walls make these little settling pops. Martha used to say it was the house talking back. But that night it just sounded lonely, empty, like something was missing. It took me a few minutes to realize what it was. Trust. That thing that anchors a man. When it breaks, the whole house feels different. I got up slow, joints stiff, and walked down to the kitchen. The floor was cold against my bare feet. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there with the glow from the microwave clock, feeling the emptiness like a draft. Normally, if Martha were alive, she'd shuffle in behind me, put her hand on my shoulder, ask if I wanted tea. But instead, I just sat alone with a cup of cold water and the weight of what I knew. And that's when the first wave hit: guilt. The kind that wraps around your ribs. I kept thinking, maybe I made him this way. Maybe giving him those $20 bills all his life, bailing him out of trouble, helping him when no one else would. Maybe I taught him the wrong kind of lesson. That grandpa's money was always there. That I'd always say yes. That desperation could be solved with a phone call to me. I kept seeing him as a kid, 8 years old, running around in the backyard with grass stains on his knees, yelling for me to push him higher on the swing. That boy wasn't a thief. That boy wasn't cruel. But the man he became, that was someone I didn't recognize. The next few days I didn't leave the house, didn't even open the blinds. I kept Tyler's backpack, yes, the same one he'd drop on my couch every visit, in my line of sight, like it held the answers. I knew I couldn't confront him yet, but I also couldn't erase the memory of him turning to that bank camera without a hint of shame. He looked like a stranger wearing my clothes. By the third day, the phone rang. Not once. 4 times. All Tyler. I didn't pick up. He left voicemails, sweet ones, syrup thick. Hey, Gramps, just checking in. You need groceries. Let me know if you want me to stop by. I could hear the confidence in his voice. The assumption. The ownership. He thought he still had me fooled. And maybe that's what drove me deeper into myself. Made me start questioning everything. By the 5th day, I'd stopped making real meals. My fridge was half empty. The mayo expired. There was a single slice of leftover roast beef that I threw out because the smell hit me wrong. I caught myself standing in the living room, one hand gripping the back of the recliner, just staring. If anyone saw me like that, they might have thought dementia really was knocking at my door. But my mind wasn't slipping, it was spiraling. You ever get so angry you feel tired from it? Not the loud kind, not the kind where you shout or slam your fist, the quiet kind, the kind that settles behind your eyes and drains the color out of the day. That's the anger I felt. A betrayal like this doesn't come with fireworks. It seeps in slow, and with every hour that passed, it dug deeper, turning into something heavier than rage, something like grief. You can lose a person without them dying. That's a hard truth at any age. By the end of the week, the isolation got worse. I woke up one morning and couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to me face to face. The house felt like a cave. Even the ticking clock in the hallway started getting under my skin, too loud, too steady, reminding me time was passing while I sat stuck. At one point, I found myself holding my wedding ring, something I only take off when my knuckles swell. I don't know what I expected. Maybe comfort, maybe permission, maybe Martha's voice telling me what the hell to do. But all I felt was cold metal. I kept replaying Tyler's expression on that footage. Not nervous, not conflicted, just focused, determined, like he thought he was justified, like he thought he'd earned that money. And part of me, the darkest part, wondered if maybe letting it go would be easier. I could pretend I never saw the footage, pretend the money didn't matter, pretend I didn't know what he was becoming. But then I looked at the USB drive sitting on my table. That little stick held my grandson's choices. His lies, his crimes, his face. And suddenly, I felt that quiet anger deepen into something sharper. Something that woke me up. Something that reminded me I wasn't done yet. But before I could rise, before I could fight, before I could even think straight, I had to climb out of the descent. And I didn't do it alone. Because the person who pulled me out of it, the person who helped me take the next step, was someone I least expected. And meeting them, well, that was the moment the whole story shifted. I wasn't planning on letting anyone into the mess I'd fallen into. Not the neighbors, not family, not even the folks at church who love sticking their noses where they don't belong. At 79, a man gets used to handling things himself. Pride is a hell of a drug, and I'd been addicted my whole life. But trouble has a way of forcing your hand, and that June, trouble wasn't knocking politely. It was pounding. It started the morning I ended up at Riverview Clinic, not because I wanted a doctor, but because my hip gave out halfway to the mailbox. You'd think a man who served in the army and survived 42 years on the factory floor would have tougher bones. But age is a thief too, just a quieter one. I fell hard enough my vision flashed white, crawled back inside like some wounded animal and sat there until the throbbing eased. It scared me, not the pain but the vulnerability. That's how they get you when you're old. That's how people like Tyler justify their lies. I called the VA hotline expecting to wait 2 hours. Instead, they patched me through to a walk-in nurse at Riverview, someone named Rosa Delgado. Latina woman, mid-50s, voice steady as a church hymn. She told me to come in right away, said she'd personally take a look. I drove myself, probably shouldn't have, but I did. When I got there, the place smelled like antiseptic and lemon floor cleaner. Small waiting room, a TV on the wall playing some daytime judge show. I checked in, sat down gingerly, and watched the minutes crawl by. My lower back pulsed with every breath. Then the door swung open. "Mr. Carter," a voice called. And that was her, Rosa, 5'4", dark hair streaked with silver, wearing navy scrubs. She had kind eyes, but not the soft kind people use when they think you're fragile. Hers were sharp, observant, the kind that had seen everything. I pushed myself up, wincing. "You okay getting back here?" she asked. "I'm old, not broken," I muttered. She smirked, just a twitch at the corner of her mouth. "We'll see about that." Inside the exam room, she checked my vitals, poked around my hip, asked a few questions. Normal stuff. But then, out of nowhere, she said, "You haven't been sleeping." I stiffened. "How'd you know?" She tapped under my eyes. "Puffy here, skin dry, shoulders tense, something's weighing on you." I didn't respond. She waited anyway. After a moment, she asked, "Got family helping you?" That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't answer, not directly. Instead, I said, "My grandson checks on me." She raised a brow. "Checks on you, that mean helps you or manages you?" I looked at her sharply. That was too close to the truth. She didn't back down. "Mr. Carter, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen every kind of family dynamic, good, bad, and the kind that fools outsiders. Don't underestimate how much an old man's face can tell me." I swallowed. My throat felt tight. I don't know what made me trust her. Maybe because she didn't pity me. Maybe because she didn't speak in that syrupy tone Tyler used. Maybe because she talked to me like I was still a man. Whatever it was, something cracked open. "I think he's stealing from me," I said quietly. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't give me that shocked expression people reserve for gossip. Instead, she said, "Financial exploitation." I nodded. "Recurring." Another nod. She blew out a slow breath. "You're not the first, you won't be the last, but you're the first this week who's willing to admit it." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" She pulled a small stool closer, sat right in front of me. Older adults often blame themselves. They make excuses for the person who's hurting them. It's heartbreaking. I'm not blaming myself. You stopped sleeping. That shut me up. Then she said words I didn't expect. "You got proof." I reached into my jacket pocket and took out the USB drive, the one holding the footage of Tyler impersonating me. I placed it in her hand. Her eyebrows shot up. "He went into the bank." "He wore my clothes," I said, "used my ID." She held the drive like it was evidence in a courtroom. "Did you report it?" "No." "Why?" "Because I'm not done gathering yet." A slow smile crept across her face, one of respect, not amusement. "So you're fighting back?" "I don't have much else left to lose," I said. She stood, opened a drawer, pulled out a crisp white folder. "Then you're going to need help." "I didn't come here for that." "No," she said, "but you clearly need it." She handed me a sheet, labeled Elder Legal Services of Oregon, free consultation. "I'm not ready for lawyers," I muttered. "This isn't a lawyer," she said. "This is Margaret Chen, Advocates for Seniors, knows every law in the book, and doesn't let anyone get away with this kind of thing. She helped a man last month recover 40 grand stolen by his nephew." I blinked. 40 grand. 43, she corrected. I stared at that sheet like it weighed 10 pounds. Then Rosa leaned closer, voice soft but firm. "If your grandson is bold enough to walk into a bank pretending to be you, this won't stop on its own." I swallowed hard. "He'll come by today, he always does." "If he does," she said, "don't confront him yet, not until you talk to Margaret." "Why?" "Because men like him don't crumble under anger," she said. "They crumble under evidence." That line stuck in my bones. It stuck hard. By the time I left the clinic, the sun had come out briefly, a bright slice between clouds. My hip still hurt, but my mind felt clearer, focused, colder maybe. Rosa had given me a direction. But when I got home, something was off. My front door was unlocked. Now I always lock it. I live alone. I'm not stupid. And Tyler didn't have any reason to be inside while I was gone. The living room smelled faintly like his cologne. I scanned the room, nothing obvious missing, but the air felt disturbed, like someone had brushed against the space. Then I noticed my file cabinet drawers. Slightly open. Just an inch. Not enough to shout, but enough to whisper that someone had been digging again. Tyler had been there, going through my life page by page. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel fear. I felt purpose. Because now it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about timing. I sat down in my recliner, folder on my lap, USB drive in my hand. Rosa was right. Men like Tyler don't crumble under confrontation. They crumble under evidence. And I had just begun gathering mine. The thing about revenge, real revenge, not the movie kind, is that it doesn't come in one big explosion. It isn't a gunshot or a screaming match or some dramatic showdown in the rain. No, sir. Real revenge is built quiet, piece by piece, like laying down railroad ties in the dead of night. Every step has to be careful, precise, intentional. And that's what the next few days became. A slow construction of a trap Tyler would never see coming. The morning after I found my file cabinet cracked open, just barely, just enough to tell me someone had been rummaging. My first call was to Margaret Chen. I sat at the kitchen table, sunlight hitting the scratches on the wood the way it used to when Martha folded laundry there. The number Rosa gave me was taped to a post-it note, the ink already starting to fade from being in my pocket. I dialed. "Elder Legal Services, this is Margaret." Her voice was crisp, professional, but not cold. That mattered. I dealt with lawyers before, back when the plant was fighting union demands, and they talked like every sentence was a chess move. Margaret wasn't like that. She spoke like someone who knew what she was doing and didn't need to prove it. "This is Harold Carter," I said. "Rosa at Riverview gave me your number." There was a beat of silence then. "Is this in regards to financial exploitation?" "I've got footage," I said. "My grandson stole from me in person at the bank." Another pause, short, sharp. "Do you have the video on hand?" "I do." "Can you come in today?" I hesitated. "I'm not ready to file charges." "That's fine," she said. "Whether you press charges or not, you still need to protect yourself. Come in." There was something in her tone, an undercurrent of urgency without panic, that got me moving. I grabbed the USB drive, locked the house double this time, and drove to her office downtown. Her office sat on the second floor of a squat brick building across from a payday loan place and a vape shop. When I walked in, the air smelled faintly like peppermint and printer ink. Margaret was younger than I expected, early 40s maybe, black hair in a tight bun, reading glasses perched low on her nose. She studied me for a long moment before speaking. "Mr. Carter," she said, standing to shake my hand, "you're here because something in your life stopped making sense." I nodded slowly. "That about sums it up." "Let's take a look." She slid the USB stick into her laptop, and I watched her face instead of the footage. Her expression didn't flicker once, not shock, not disgust, just calm assessment. "This isn't amateur work," she said after the second clip. "He practiced this." I swallowed. "I know." "And he's comfortable," she added. "Too comfortable. That means he thinks you won't push back." That struck deep. She clicked to the final clip, watched the moment Tyler looked right at the camera. "I've seen this before," she said quietly. "Family members who think cognitive decline is a money tree, they justify it, tell themselves they're entitled. Sometimes they convince the whole family the elder is confused." I thought of Tyler hovering over me, of the way he said slip and confused, like he was planting seeds. Margaret closed the laptop. "Mr. Carter, you don't need just documentation, you need a plan." I straightened in my chair. "What kind?" "The kind that catches a thief in the act," she said, "and protects you legally while doing it." Then she laid out 3 steps, simple on the surface, sharp underneath. Step 1, consolidate your finances. Move every account to a new bank, new branch, new login. She even helped me schedule the appointment, quietly, carefully. Step 2, pretend nothing has changed. I had to keep acting the part, foggy, slow, trusting. If Tyler suspected even for a second that I knew, he'd bolt or change tactics. Step 3, let him make the next move. Because he would. They always do. By the time I left her office, the plan felt like a weight in my pocket, heavier than the USB drive had been. My hands were steady on the steering wheel for the first time in weeks. But the real test came that same evening. Tyler showed up at 5:06 p.m. Just like always. Predictable as clockwork. I heard his car before I saw him, the rattling exhaust, the thump of his subwoofer vibrating the driveway. He didn't knock. He never knocked anymore, just walked right in like he paid the mortgage. "Gramps," he called, "you home?" I was sitting in the recliner, remote in hand, staring blankly at the TV. I let my eyes widen slightly, blinking slow, playing the part I hated. "You weren't here earlier, were you?" I asked, voice soft, unsure. He froze for a split second, a hairline pause most folks would miss. "But I didn't." "No," he said quickly. "Why, something wrong?" I shook my head, just thought maybe I forgot. He smiled, that same syrupy smile. "You've been doing that a lot lately." I let that sit, let him feel confident, let him get comfortable. He walked over and set his hand gently on my shoulder. "You really should let me take over your bills, Gramps. It's getting hard for you. I can handle it." Right there. That was the moment I knew Margaret was right. If I pushed too soon, he'd bury himself deeper. If I played along, he'd dig his own grave. "You think so?" I murmured. "I do," he said, squeezing my shoulder. "You can trust me." I nodded slowly. letting my gaze drift away like my thoughts had wandered off somewhere. "That's good," I said quietly. "Good to have someone who cares." His chest puffed a little. He didn't know it, but he was stepping into the trap already. He turned to my file cabinet, casual as anything. "Mind if I look at the mail? Just help organize." I waved a hand vaguely. "Go ahead." He didn't see my eyes sharpen. He didn't see the shift in my breathing. He thought he was in control. He had no idea I'd spent the morning arming myself with an attorney, a strategy, and a new resolve. As he rifled through my papers, touching documents he had no right to, I felt something cold and steady rise inside me. Not anger, not fear, preparation. Because Margaret was right. Men like Tyler don't crumble under confrontation. They crumble under evidence. And tomorrow, I'd take the next step in gathering it. The day things finally tipped wasn't dramatic at first. No storm clouds, no warning sirens. Just a quiet Oregon morning on June 22nd, mist hanging low over the street, everything damp enough that the pavement looked freshly washed. The kind of morning Martha used to call gentle weather, because it made the world feel softer. I remember thinking there wasn't a damn thing soft about what was coming. I had an appointment at the new bank, Riverstone Credit Union, scheduled for 10:30 a.m. Margaret arranged it herself, said I needed to get every dollar I had into accounts Tyler didn't know existed. I didn't argue. When someone that sharp tells you how to avoid drowning, you hold your breath and follow instructions. I got there early, parked crooked because my hip flared up at the last second. Inside, the place felt nothing like Columbia Federal. Warmer, smaller, no suits. The manager, a woman named Denise, met me personally. Handshake firm, voice no nonsense. "You here to transfer everything?" she asked, getting right to it. "I am." Attorney Chen gave us the full rundown. "We'll handle it discreetly." She wasn't kidding. In under an hour, every penny of mine, checking, savings, IRA rollover, even that little emergency stash I kept buried in an old Fidelity account, was moved, consolidated, shielded. She helped me set up a brand new PIN, new online login, new everything. Then she did something unexpected. "Mr. Carter," she said, sliding a new debit card across the desk, "I recommend activating transaction alerts on your phone." I almost laughed. "You think I'm that tech savvy?" She smiled. "I think you're more capable than people assume." That line stuck with me. By the time I drove home, a quiet confidence had settled in my chest, the first real one I felt in weeks. My accounts were safe. My information was sealed. Tyler had no idea the ground he'd been standing on had just been ripped out from under him. But that wasn't the real trap. The trap was waiting at the house. Because it was time for Tyler to make his next move. The opportunity came faster than I expected. When I pulled into the driveway, his Honda was already there, parked crooked, as if he arrived in a hurry. He was standing on my porch, backpack slung over one shoulder, knocking with the back of his knuckles the way he always did when he wanted to play the concerned grandson. "Gramps," he called, "you home? I need to talk to you." Need, not want. That told me plenty. I walked up slow, letting my keys jingle so he'd hear me coming. He turned fast, plastering that sweet smile on his face. "There you are," he said. "You feeling okay? You didn't answer your phone." I gave him the version of me he expected, slightly confused, a little out of breath, blinking too slow. "My phone was somewhere," I muttered. He put a hand on my arm, guiding me inside like I was a piece of fragile furniture. "You really scared me," he said. I almost snorted. If he was scared, it wasn't for me. Once inside, he didn't waste time. He went straight for the dining table, pulled out my mail pile and sorted through it like he owned it. Then he opened that damn backpack. And there it was, a fresh stack of printed forms. "Gramps," he said gently, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said last week, about forgetting things." I nodded, keeping my expression blank. "I think we should get some paperwork in place, just so I can help you, make sure nothing falls through the cracks." He slid the top paper toward me. Durable power of attorney. My name on the top line. His name on the second. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't disorganized thievery anymore. This was planning, strategy, escalation. "Tyler," I whispered, "you think I can't handle things anymore?" He leaned closer, wearing that performance-soft voice he used on every cashier and dental assistant who ever pitied him. "It's not about that," he said. "It's about keeping you safe." Safe. The word tasted like iron. He took a pen out and placed it next to the form. "Just sign here," he said softly, "and I'll handle everything from now on." I stared at him, at the ease on his face, the confidence, the certainty that he had me trapped, that I'd signed because I was old and foggy and helpless. "What if someone took advantage of me?" I asked, pretending to hesitate. "What if someone wasn't honest?" He didn't blink. "Then I'd protect you." He believed it. Not the protecting part, the believing I'd fold. And that's when I dropped the first piece of the trap. "Would you get me a glass of water?" I asked. "My throat's dry." "Of course," he said quickly, eager to show how caring he was. The second he stepped into the kitchen, I reached under my recliner cushion and pulled out the little digital voice recorder Margaret had given me, the kind nurses use for dictation. "Let him talk," she told me. "Let him incriminate himself." I pressed record. Just in time. Tyler came back holding the glass, and as he set it down, he sighed dramatically. "It's getting harder, Gramps," he said. "Managing everything, paying your bills, fixing your mistakes. I can't keep patching this stuff up. You need help." I murmured, "You've been handling my finances." He didn't miss a beat. "Well, yeah, someone has to. You forget half your checks. You leave your account info lying around. I'm basically doing your banking already." There it was. The first admission. I let the silence stretch, giving him room. He filled it. "I mean, I've been making withdrawals for you because you lose your debit card. That's not safe." Another admission. A big one. "You took out money for me?" I asked, voice small. He nodded. "Only because you needed it, and because you can't keep track of things." I glanced at the form again. "And the power of attorney, that would make it easier for you." His shoulders relaxed. "Exactly, it would make everything legal." That was the moment. The exact words I needed. Make everything legal. Because right now. It was. I didn't sign, not yet. I needed one more thing. "Tyler," I said softly, "just tell me, have you already taken money out of my account, without asking?" He hesitated. Blink. Swallow. Jaw tighten. Then, because the arrogance of being 25 makes you reckless, he nodded. "I only did it because you needed help," he whispered. "You should thank me honestly. I've saved you from a lot of mistakes." The recorder captured every syllable. He pushed the pen toward me again. "Come on, Gramps, sign. Let me make this official." Before I could answer, my front door opened. Not slammed. Not thrown. Opened. And standing there was someone Tyler didn't expect. Margaret. Clipboards under her arm. Professional smile sharpened to a point. She stepped inside like she belonged there. And Tyler froze, pen still in hand. Now the real execution was starting. Tyler didn't move at first. Didn't speak. Didn't even breathe, far as I could tell. He just stood there holding that pen, staring at Margaret like she'd materialized out of thin air to ruin his afternoon, which, in a way, she had. "Hello, Tyler," she said, voice calm, professional. "I'm Margaret Chen. Your grandfather and I have been working together." You could see the panic ripple through him, a shift behind the eyes, a stiffening in the shoulders. His hand, the one holding the pen, twitched like he wasn't sure whether to drop it or hide it. He looked at me, his voice cracking. "Gramps, what's going on?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Margaret stepped forward and placed a folder on the table. "We're here to discuss the withdrawals you've been making without Mr. Carter's consent." That word, withdrawals, hit him like a slap. His face went pale, then flushed red, then settled into something tight and hostile. "He told you," Tyler snapped. No, Margaret said gently, you did. And she looked at the recorder, sitting openly on the arm of my recliner. Tyler's mouth fell open. You tricked me. I finally spoke, my voice steady. No, son, I let you talk, there's a difference. For a second, the room was silent except for the hum of my old refrigerator. It filled the space the way tension fills a church right before bad news is announced. Tyler pointed at Margaret. You can't just come in here. This is my grandfather's house. She didn't even blink. Mr. Carter invited me, and I walked in because the door was unlocked and apparently recently inspected. Tyler swallowed so hard I could hear it. Then came the shift, the one Margaret warned me about. I watched the fear drain out of him and something colder take its place. Not anger, calculation. He straightened, smoothed his shirt, slipped the pen into his pocket. I don't know what she's feeding you, Gramps, he said, voice soft, almost trembling. But she's twisting things. You're confused. That's why I brought the papers to help you. You know how overwhelmed you get. I leaned back slowly, watching him spin his web. Margaret didn't interrupt. She let him tangle himself in his own rope. You've been forgetting things, Tyler continued. Bills, phone calls, even conversations we had. You told me you wanted help. You said you couldn't trust yourself anymore. That almost broke me, not because it worked, but because it reminded me how close he'd come. How easily he could have gotten everything if he'd been just a little more patient, a little less arrogant. Mr. Carter, Margaret said gently, addressing me but watching Tyler out of the corner of her eye. Do you remember asking your grandson to take over your accounts? I shook my head. No, I remember him asking me. Tyler's jaw clenched. He doesn't remember saying it, that's the whole point. No, Margaret said calmly, the point is that he does remember, and so do you. She looked at Tyler. And the law will too. He let out a small laugh, forced, brittle. What law? He's not filing anything. That's when Margaret opened her folder. And the entire tone of the room shifted. Inside were printed still frames, pulled from the bank footage. Tyler at the counter. Tyler looking at the camera. Tyler signing the slip. Tyler holding the cash. His face. His clothes. His posture. He stared at them as if they'd appeared by magic. I spoke with Columbia Federal this morning, Margaret said quietly. Your behavior is on record, multiple instances. He whipped around to me. Gramps, why would you let her? Son, I said slowly, I had to know the truth. His voice rose, cracking. I was helping you. No, I said, heat rising in my chest. You were helping yourself. He blinked fast. You don't understand. Oh, I understand just fine, I said. The bank footage told me everything. That's when the mask finally broke. His shoulders dropped. His eyes hardened. His whole body changed, like he stopped pretending to be the good grandson and showed me who he really was. All right, he said quietly. Fine. I took some money, but I deserved it. Margaret froze. You what? I deserved it, he repeated louder. He has all this cash sitting around, and what does he need it for? He forgets half the time what day it is. I felt something inside me snap, not physically, but deep, like an old wound getting torn open again. I earned every damn dollar I have, I said. He stepped forward. And you are going to die before using any of it for someone who actually needs it. Tyler, my voice shook, not with fear but with fury. I raised you. He didn't back down. You spoiled me. You made me dependent on you. This is your fault, not mine. Those words landed like a punch. Margaret stood between us. That's enough. Tyler looked at her with pure venom. You don't know anything about this family. I know exploitation when I see it, she said. Then she read from her notes. 4 unauthorized withdrawals totaling $9,800. Attempted acquisition of power of attorney under false pretenses. Possible identity fraud. Mail tampering. Potential coercion. Tyler's face went white. That's prison time, she added. Now the panic returned. His breath quickened. His hands shook. Gramps, please. His voice broke, and for a moment I almost saw the kid he used to be. We can fix this. Just tell her you don't want to press charges. I'll stop. I'll put it all back. I swear on Mom. Please, Gramps. But I wasn't looking at the boy who hugged me after baseball games. I was looking at the man on the bank footage. The man who rifled through my papers, opened my mail, wore my clothes, stole my trust, stole my dignity, stole nearly 10 grand and called it a favor. You didn't stop, I said, voice quiet. Not when I got confused, not when I trusted you, not when you took the first 1,000, not when you took the 9th. He tried to step closer, but Margaret blocked him. Don't, she warned. Then something happened I didn't expect. Tyler's face twisted, not with rage or fear, but resentment. You owe me, he spit out. You hear me? You owe me. I exhaled long, hard. No, I said, you owe me, and now you're going to pay it back one way or another. That's when Tyler realized the truth. This wasn't a conversation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was the end. And the downfall of everything he thought he controlled had officially begun. I didn't sleep the night after everything came crashing down. Didn't even try. I sat in my recliner with a blanket over my legs, the house quiet the way only old houses get, every creak amplified, every memory louder than the last. I watched the light shift across the carpet as dawn came in thin gray streaks. 79 years old, and it felt like I'd lived 3 lifetimes in a single month. The morning after the confrontation, Margaret handled everything with a precision I didn't know humans could have. She called Columbia Federal. She called Riverstone. She called Adult Protective Services. She called County Law Enforcement. She moved like a surgeon. No wasted motion, no hesitation, no fear of breaking whatever still felt fragile inside me. I just sat there, watching the world I knew rearrange itself. By noon, Tyler was gone. Not arrested, not dragged out in handcuffs, not screaming or crying or making a scene. He simply left. Margaret said it was common. When people like him realize the jig is up, they vanish for a bit. They try to regroup. Sometimes they run. Sometimes they grovel. Sometimes they blame the victim. He didn't run far. Just far enough to leave silence in his place. His father, my son, Robert, showed up the next day. He stormed into my living room like he'd sprinted from the driveway, sweat on his forehead, breath uneven. He'd gotten Margaret's voicemail before I could call him myself. Dad, he said, voice shaking, is it true? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew the truth would break something in him, the way it had broken something in me. Finally, I nodded. Robert sat down hard on the couch, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. Jesus, he whispered, my kid, my own kid did this. I spoke quietly. He didn't do it because of you. He looked up, eyes red. But you trusted him. You loved him. He was supposed to take care of you. He thought I was slipping, I said, thought he could get away with it. My son let out a hollow laugh. He told us you were getting forgetful, you know. Me, his mother. He said he was checking on you because you were getting confused. I let that sink in. That was the part that hurt the most. He had been laying groundwork with the whole family while he scavenged through my life. Where is he now? I asked quietly. His mother says he's staying with a friend in Vancouver. Won't answer anyone's calls. Robert paused. Dad, do you want to press charges? That question sat between us like a thick fog. I looked at my hands, old hands, lined and spotted and stiff, and remembered the feel of pushing Tyler on the swing when he was 5. The way he clung to my neck during thunderstorms. The time I taught him to drive in the Walmart parking lot, both of us laughing when he hit the brakes too hard and I spilled coffee on myself. I remembered all of it. Then I remembered the footage. The impersonation. The lies. The mailbox tampering. The way he looked me in the eye and told me I owed him. Dad, Robert said again, voice softening, it's your call. I took a long breath. I don't want him in prison. Relief flashed across his face for a second before I added. But he has to face consequences, real ones. I wasn't forgiving what he did. But I wasn't throwing him to the wolves either. Margaret arranged what she called restorative compliance agreement. Not prison, but far from a slap on the wrist. It required full restitution of every stolen dollar, a legally binding financial no-contact order, mandatory counseling, documented employment and supervised income, a permanent ban from handling my finances in any capacity, regular check-ins with the county fraud officer. If he violated anything, just one line, the DA would file the full criminal case immediately, with the bank footage as Exhibit A. He agreed, quietly, without looking at me. The day he signed the papers, I watched him walk out of that county office with his shoulders slumped, hands shoved deep in his pockets, the same posture he had as a teenager when he got caught shoplifting gum at a gas station. But this time the stakes were higher. And I wasn't rescuing him. Not again. He didn't speak to me for weeks afterward. Didn't call. Didn't visit. Didn't check in. And I'll tell you the truth, the silence hurt. More than I expected. Revenge isn't clean. Justice isn't painless. Sometimes winning still costs you something you didn't realize you were bargaining with. But you know what? I slept better. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. My mail stayed sealed. My drawers stayed untouched. My account stayed mine. And I realized something. Growing old isn't the same as disappearing. People assume vulnerability means weakness. But outliving your enemies, outsmarting your betrayers, outlasting the people who think you're fading, that's its own kind of strength. A quiet one. A hard-earned one. Rosa checked in on me every 2 weeks. Margaret called once the final paperwork cleared. Robert came by more often, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to sit. And Tyler, well, 1 month after everything settled, he left a card on my porch. Didn't knock. Didn't linger. Inside he'd written, "I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I'll pay everything back. I never should have thought you wouldn't notice. Ty." No excuses. No manipulation. No blame. Just truth. Raw. Simple. Too late. But real. I sat there with that card in my hands for a long time. Do I forgive him? Not completely. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I don't hate him either. Hate would mean I still wanted something from him, an apology, a relationship, a fix for the past. I don't. I just want him to live differently than he has. And as for me, I wake up every morning, open my blinds, make my coffee, check my accounts, and live in a house that finally feels like mine again. A house where trust isn't stolen in the daylight. Where the quiet is peace, not danger. I didn't get a happy ending. That's not how life works. But I got my dignity back. My safety. My clarity. And that's enough. At 79 years old, that's more than enough. Because the truth is, he thought my mind was fading. He thought my memory was slipping. He thought I'd never fight back. He was wrong. I'm still here. Still sharp. Still standing. And I'll stay standing. For as long as this old heart keeps beating.